Welcome to This is Wealth. On this podcast, we ask, what is wealth? What does wealthy really mean to you? Most of us immediately think of money, but honestly, wealth is so much more than that. If you have health, deep friendships, a supportive family, you have great wealth. My name is Liz Crawford. Get ready to be impacted. Behind every composed exterior lies a story of profound courage. Today, I'm honored to share the deeply personal journey of Staci Almager, a woman whose strength has been tested in ways that no parent should ever have to endure. Staci is an accomplished professional, devoted wife, and loving mother. Staci and her husband have raised 4 children, creating what many would recognize as a quintessential American family. But life rarely unfolds according to our carefully laid plans. Behind the achievements and accolades, Staci and her family have walked a path that no family should have to travel, caring for a child facing a life-threatening illness, and ultimately saying goodbye far too soon. In our conversation today, Staci opens her heart about the unimaginable journey of loving, fighting for, and losing her daughter. She shares the lessons learned in the deepest valleys of grief, and how a family finds ways to honor a life that ended too early. This is a conversation about love that transcends loss, about finding meaning in the midst of unthinkable pain, and about the quiet heroism of parents who must navigate the unbearable. Staci's willingness to share her story reminds us that behind every person we meet may be a story of profound loss and profound love. Please join me for this deeply personal conversation with Staci Almager. Staci, thank you so much for being here today. I'm really excited to dive in and hear about your story. Would you start by sharing with our audience a little bit about you, your background, your family, just a little bit so that we know who you are as we have this conversation?
I'm delighted to, and thank you so much for the opportunity to join you today. So I was raised on a farm in rural Kansas, and I say that really was the foundation of life for me. And I've lived in the San Antonio, Texas community for over 30 years. Mm-hmm. I'm married to the most wonderful man, and we have 4 children and a herd of pets, which keeps us on our toes. And so professionally, I have served as the CEO of Hill Country Family Services for the past 7 years. But within the last 2 weeks, it has become public that I'm going to be starting my PhD program at Baylor University in the fall.
That's very
excited about that. And, I have had so many people say, why? I don't know, but I feel called to do it. And so it's really exciting for me to take this enormous leap of faith to really lean into something that I have wanted to do for 2 decades, but just didn't have the capacity to do so.
I think, loose ends.
Yes.
Tying up loose ends. Yes. And those little voices or thoughts in your head that just don't go away, you have to pay attention to and see to the finish.
I agree wholeheartedly. And, my youngest just graduated from high school.
Congratulations.
2 weeks ago. Thank you. My husband and I have had children in the public school system for exactly 30 years.
I'm not doing the math on mine.
I don't think you really should do the math. It's kind of like when you total up the amount of money that you spent on a child's activity, or, I sat on a karate bench long enough to have 2 boys with these really impressive belts, and then I realized we paid like $40,000 for it. But anyway, it's great. Life is so rewarding, and it's just a beautiful season.
That's wonderful.
Thank you.
How did you end up CEO of an organization here in Boerne? What was the path that got you here?
Oh gracious, it's a country song. Of course, everybody's life seems to be a country song at some point. But the broken road, yes, and it really has been an amazing opportunity for me. So we moved to the Boerne area 20 years ago, and at that time, I worked for the First Tee organization, which is now called the PGA Tour Foundation. Okay. It's the charitable arm of really what helps young individuals, young men and women, have the character attributes that we really are seeking in our young people. So I helped as a regional director of philanthropy, that organization raise a lot of money in order to ensure the programs were sustainable across the world. Mm-hmm. And that was a very exciting opportunity. During my years at First Tee, my daughter passed away. And that was a very shocking and unexpected turn in our life. And it became crystal clear that I was traveling a lot. Mm-hmm. I needed to be home with my other children. Mm-hmm. We needed to really really circle the wagons and make sure that we were intentionally together. But also at that season of my life, I needed to be working professionally. And so all of the things worked out. There's a more eloquent way to say that, but really, I interviewed for that position. I became CEO unexpectedly. I remember coming from an environment where I spent most of my time in high net worth environments and country clubs and yacht clubs, and Hill Country Family Services is what I lovingly call the industrial side of Bernie, which is I walked up to the front door and said, I don't know if I can do this. This is hard. Like, this is only because I wasn't sure if I could serve the individual's needs at the basic level in which they needed them accomplished. And I think that's the humility side. I was certainly not better than anyone. I just wanted to know if they needed more than me. And so it really was a kind of a convergence of emotions, of recognize that I needed to be here physically, I needed to be here professionally. I just wanted to make sure I could do the best I could possibly do in that season. And I think we all have to be a little humble, you know, like, absolutely. Am I the right person at the right time for the right reasons? And apparently the answer was yes, because I just celebrated the 7th anniversary of my work in the community. And it's been extraordinary, mind-bending. It's been all the adjectives that make you realize that you were the right person. Right. What a journey and an experience. It was an extraordinary journey. And I say, and my board hates it when I say this, but it's the only way to describe it. COVID was the best thing that ever happened to our organization, because up until that point, people really didn't know what we did. And then suddenly everybody needed something from us, and they realized that no matter who you are or what position in which you serve or what neighborhood you lived in, everyone was affected by that global pandemic. And it allowed us to really step up and serve in a more intentional way, all of the members of our community. And it really has been a beautiful experience. You know, I say this all the time. The disease was awful. There are a lot of awful things about COVID, but on the other hand, there were some really wonderful things, like the world stopped. We got off the wheel, the hamster wheel, and we sat with our families and we reconnected, and life literally was not moving in many ways. And so it was a wonderful opportunity to reconnect, to sit down, to have dinners together, to look at each other all day, to have conversations all day. And, you know, for us, we connected as a team. The connection that happens in crisis is amazing. It just seals that bond so much faster. And so, you know, at work, we would be spending 10 hours on Teams together throughout the day for weeks on end. But you'd also be able to walk out of your office and go sit with your family and decompress and visit with them. I just think there are some benefits there, and it's so quickly how they are erased when the wheel starts turning again and business starts going again. And you have to really be intentional and make time for family and connections. You do. And I've said this many times, but it's so shocking how each generation or each group of people viewed that differently. You know, we served our elder population as their isolation was just catastrophic. I went to work every day. You know, my role required me to be physically present in our offices every day, because we were boots on the ground, if you will, first line of defense. And about a month in, I told my youngest that we needed to shake the stink off and get out of the house. And he went to work with me one day. We were driving down Main Street, which is usually bustling with activity, and there was not a soul to be seen. And he looked at me. He was little, maybe 11. And he said, "Did everybody die?" I know. It was just an odd time. So his reality was like something out of a movie. Like it was, I felt like we were setting up some sort of scene for someone. And my vision was this was the new normal, because I had seen it. His normal was that he hadn't seen anything outside of our home for a month, and his reality was very different. And then, of course, back to the individuals who were isolated, their reality was even different.
Yeah, so. I think that's a very fair point, that depending on your perspective.
Yeah, perspective is everything. And really, speaking to did we stop a little bit? I think there are some negative things that happened, like the Zooms that have now controlled our lives. If you don't pencil in an opportunity to have lunch or drive time, there's this expectation that you're now available for 8 to 10 hours a day via Zoom. And so, there's no water cooler talk anymore.
I have 2 partners who are remote, and they used to work part-time. And when COVID happened, part-time went out the window because that Teams meant they were always available.
That's great. I love it.
Yeah, we joke about that all the time. But I tell my people, we're not going to have every meeting on Teams. Get in a conference room together, talk to each other. I often find it's the before and after conversation where you get the most out of the meeting. It's the few minutes before, or as they're walking out, they turn around and say, hey, what about this? And that may be the idea that generates the next big thing.
Yes, and then not to focus on the negative, but on the negative side, we scheduled all of our client meetings obviously virtual over Zoom or Teams, and you miss the nonverbal communication.
Exactly.
You really miss emotion.
Yep.
I think it's like anything. I can be a little direct. Some could be terse, that when I email someone, I'm not someone who says, how are the children? How's the weather? I launch right into it.
You and I are the same.
So anyway, it is a little bit... I think I had to learn a little bit of emotional intelligence. Yeah. And I thought I was really good at that. But when the second or third person says, is everything okay? Did I offend you somehow? I thought, oh, you are just meeting the email me face to face.
The results-oriented me.
Yeah,
yes.
There you go.
Yeah, I know. I completely understand. As people, I think we're meant to be with people. We're meant for that connection. And your mind assesses things so quickly without you even knowing it. But you don't get all of that on the screen.
You don't. And you're right about the connectedness. There was a study that was comparing the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which we all studied in high school and college, about how, really at the basic, you're supposed to seek food, safety, shelter, hydration. And there's a new study that came out that said that connectedness was even more important than those basic needs, which I thought was really fascinating, because they're right. If we don't have that emotional connectedness, then nothing else really matters.
That's right, because we give up for everything else. But it's really interesting also that we never measured that before, because it was just innate. That. Yeah. Tell me a little bit about your family. You have 4 children. Ages. Tell me about.
Let's see. So we had them all we had them all at our house yesterday, because we were celebrating Father's Day. And so we have our 18-year-old who is going to be heading to culinary school. He's very excited about that.
Where?
The Culinary Institute of America in St. Helena, California.
Very nice.
So he is going to be whipping up amazing things.
Did he cook last night?
He didn't. Which is so interesting to me, because he has these great dreams and he doesn't cook at the house.
That's
except
funny.
Like he'll go to HEB and buy himself a Wagyu steak for himself.
Yes.
Not for the rest of us. But anyway, launching forward, we have the most incredible middle son, who is 23. And he's still trying to find the color of his parachute. He majored in history in college, and we like our kids close. We're not the type of family who has an expectation that at age 18, you have it all figured out.
Right.
He was the part of the class of 2020 when they graduated back to COVID. And he really was not sure like where the world was going to take him. And we let him sit in that sense of ponder for a while. He worked for a couple of years through the COVID years, and then went to college and was highly successful, and he's just precious.
That's
so
great.
Now he's working and trying to find his way in the universe, which we love. They say that young men, young women as well, but they seem to be more mature. Young men, sometimes it takes them an extra little bit, for their maturity to get there. So he's just hysterical and has a great wit and very intelligent. If you want a hiking partner, he's your guy. He'll tell you anything you want to know about ancient history and one of those. And then my oldest son is actually my stepson, although I would never refer to him that way. He's wonderful. I've known him since he was 5.
Aww.
And he's great. He's going to be moving to Houston on Wednesday.
Very good.
So very excited. We do have a daughter who was our oldest, and she passed away 9 years ago.
I'm sorry.
And thank you for that. I really appreciate that. She was a nurse and had an incredible way with people, and we really do honor her because of the way in which she lived her life, and we talk about her quite frequently.
I love that. I love that.
Thank you. Thank you.
On the one hand, losing a child is my biggest nightmare. It's my fear, my biggest fear. I have 4 kids like you. My oldest is my daughter, 3 boys afterwards. So
we're the same.
Yep. And every time they're off to go do something, I have to mentally say, okay, what's the worst that can happen? Okay, can I live with that? Okay, now I can, let that move forward. And I think just every mother fears losing their child. But every time I've met a woman who has lost a child, I don't know, there's something that happens to you inside that I don't think anybody else can understand unless they've been in that position. But they're given gifts, if you will, that others of us don't have. And I think it's from being in that despair that you go through when losing a child that gives you a wider margin of grace for others, of love for others, of compassion, even though they may not have been the most compassionate as you went through things, because it's so lonely and hard, and people trying to be good and polite, often we put our foot in our mouth as we're doing it unintentionally. That's my view on when this has happened with women that I have come across, which has not been a whole lot, but whether it's, losing a baby before it's born, or a, SIDS death, or growing up, I had a friend who lost her sister at 7. And, I remember from these things, people saying, don't act like she didn't exist. She was a part of our family. We love her. We talk about her. We celebrate her life. And, I think a lot of people don't know how to even engage when somebody has lost a child. What were things that were positive for you, that helped you as you were going through the loss?
I don't even know where to start. First of all, thank you for that. I thank you for that, because it is important that we give the grace that is needed to this unfortunate population of us who will grieve every moment of every day for the rest of our lives. Yes. Billy Bob Thornton said something really important in it was like a video that I saw, and it just spoke to my soul. He said, when my brother died, that was the worst moment of my life, and I will miss him every moment and day of my entire life. And if that means that I am happy 50% of the time and sad the other 50% of the time, that's the way it's going to be, because I loved him that much.
Yes.
And that's where I feel like our family sits in that space, where we talk about our daughter, we as if she's still there.
Right.
We add her to every evening prayer that we have over our dinner. We laugh over the things that were her obnoxious traits.
Yes.
We celebrate the things that she did that were really joyful. She passed away at 24, so we actually had quite a bit of life with her, which is very fortunate, and we're very, very grateful for that. But we also watched her suffer.
Right.
And so therefore, when people say things like, God doesn't give you anything you can't handle, I don't know who that is, but that is not right.
Right.
He does. And individuals who go through very hard things, whether it be a loss of a child or anything that's just really catastrophic, that's your own personal Gethsemane. As a result, I became a grief and trauma chaplain.
Okay.
And that was the way that I handled it, because I spent a couple of years not coping and dealing very well, because you can't just survive.
No.
You know, you need to be able to really wrap your arms around. That's why I decided to go back to school at age 53. Right. Like, people say, why are you doing that? Because I can.
Right.
And more importantly, I feel drawn to be able to become educated in a space in which I can help people. And I feel like that was my calling. It was probably my calling all along. I just needed to be able to find the path, and more importantly, have the experiences and the depths of emotions in order to be in that space.
Yes. Tell me about Jennifer.
Oh, she was so beautiful. She truly was a bubbly, blonde, beautiful little girl who everyone just was always drawn to. Sick from birth, so it was not a secret that she was going to have a really challenging life. Had a couple of kidney transplants, and so it was a lot. And you know, when I think back about how hard it was to be a professional woman during those years, there's a lot of context to this because it makes no sense. But essentially, I had quit my job because I knew her recovery was going to be very robust and lengthy and hard. And then the transplant surgeons decided that wasn't the right time.
Oh, gosh.
So then I became unemployed with this very ill child. And so I went back to work. You know, it takes a hot minute to find another job. And then the moment that I got the new job, then, now it's time. And I had 1 day off.
Oh my gosh.
For the kidney transplant. And my husband was the donor. And so I had two of my immediate family members in the intensive care unit, Christus Santa Rosa Children's Hospital, at the exact same time. And I had 1 day off. So I had to go to work and pretend my life was fine, but it was not fine.
As a new employee, too.
As a new employee, yes, I was fine. So I got really good at being fine. You know,
yes,
I'm fine.
Yes,
I think we as working women I'm not trying to be dismissive of men, because I think they're actually even better at it than we are. You're fine. You can put on a mask and show up and do
zip
great
those
and
feelings
zip it up, and that is so dangerous because you can't live your life that way. You can't live. Not that you need to go and. Your workplace is not your therapy office. Right. You know, the people that you work with, you're very fortunate if they become individuals that you consider your friends. Yes. And then you're really, really fortunate if that friendship transcends over to your personal life, because sometimes they're at work friends. You can't be yourself. I remember I worked with a team of wonderful people, and they would invite me to lunch every day, and I would decline. And I'm sure they thought, she's just not very friendly. But the reality is that I was going to my daughter's elementary school and helping her take care of her colostomy bag, which is way oversharing. That's my lunch. Like, that's what I did every day. And so you're so zipped up that you become almost not human to the rest of the people, and that's very isolating. Yeah. It's probably the second time I've said it's very isolating. Well, it is.
But I mean,
how do you even share that? You shouldn't. It's the workplace, right?
Yeah. Where does it come up? You know, not at the lunch table.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. So you knew from birth that she was going to have issues all her life. How did you and your husband deal with that? You're new parents. It's your first child. How do you even put your heads together?
Thank you for asking that. And this is really going deep. I married my high school sweetheart, and we didn't do well. I brought my daughter home from the NICU after 8 months by myself.
Wow.
And so I was by myself. That's another thing. Not that this needs to go real deep in this direction, but when people say, my daughter Julie spent 3 days in the NICU and it was the hardest 3 days of my life, it's very isolating and very hard when your child spent 8 months there.
Yes.
And so it's like you have to reframe reality, because it's not their fault. That was their
to them
experience.
That was the worst.
Yes, exactly. And so you have to be very careful not to be judgmental of other people's experiences. Although your instinct is to say you have no idea what NICU is really like. But I was a single parent by myself until my daughter was 5. And at that time, we moved to San Antonio from Kansas City, and I met my husband.
Okay.
And so he had a son, I had a daughter. We got married, had 2 more.
Love it.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
When my daughter needed a kidney transplant, he was the only match.
Wow.
And so it was really spiritual, very magical.
Don't you see God's hand at work?
Yes. So it really was lots of years of being a blended family and all the things, and
complications on top of complications.
It was so funny because my oldest son, my stepson was saying, remember when Jennifer was in the intensive care unit and Dad and I were playing soccer in the house and I fell into the television, and that was our conversation at dinner last night. I'm like, yeah, I remember that. So those are not like, remember when we were at the beach and so-and-so, slipped on a jellyfish. Our stories are like, anyone from the outside would just have their mouths hanging open. Like, are you kidding me? You can joke about that? Yeah.
You have to. It was your life.
Yeah. It was like almost 2 children in the intensive care unit.
Right?
I love it. Now, those are really the stories in which we reflect on and are very sacred to us.
Yes.
And we do get a good laugh out of it.
What would you tell another mother of a chronically ill child? What advice do you have for parents that encounter that?
This is why I became ordained grief and trauma chaplain, because I said to myself, I feel so comfortable in a children's hospital. Mm-hmm. It's usually, when you think about somewhere like St. Jude and you see the commercials and Marlo Thomas says, grateful for the well children in your life, or whatever she says. I think, but I know exactly how it feels to also be grateful for my child that's not well.
Right.
And so I have to reframe that. And I thought, I'm really comfortable there. When I walk in and I see a child with an IV attached, or, in a circumstances where they're obviously not well, I look at that child as the most perfect child. Mm-hmm. And I thought, I want to be in a space where I can help people live through that experience. Because what I want people to see and hear is that they're seen.
Right.
It's
we're not going to turn our eye from you.
Right, absolutely. And I really want those people to live their reality and not put that jumpsuit of isolation around them, because it is so important for them to know they're in crisis parenting.
Right.
This isn't I remember when my second was born, 9 years after my first, I didn't even know what it was like to have an experience of going to the hospital to have a baby and come home and strap them in the car and drive them home and have balloons and all, because that had not been my lived experience.
Yeah.
And that was so exciting. And so I think that there's a sense of loss when you don't have the dream.
Right.
You don't live the dream that you thought was going to be the dream. It's so different.
Right.
And that's okay.
Right.
Because that'll be part of the story too. I think I would want them to know that it's okay to grieve that. Mm-hmm. That you need to process that. You need to, you have to somehow find a way to process through, it didn't happen the way that it was supposed to in my mind.
Right.
And I see you.
Right. My comparison is going to be stupid, but I think, every mother in my day and your day went with a birth plan of what she thought was going to happen and how it was going to be. And, hey, doc, here you go. And the docs laugh and go, God has a plan. It's going to work out however it does. Mm-hmm. And if it didn't work out the way they wanted, some mothers could be crushed about that. But that's not the point. The point is that you're there and you're going through the experience of having a child. What you wanted almost doesn't matter. And yes, grieving, okay, this didn't happen this way. But what you get, you may have to process. But, like I said, this is way high up here. We're not talking about grief. We're just talking about expectations at this point. But grieving that world isn't going to happen, but this one is. Let me re-gear myself for this reality.
So something that's missing in healthcare, and if I had a magic wand, I would make sure that after every birth, there was someone that the new mom could talk to.
I love that.
I mean, I don't care if it's the most beautiful, natural, perfect birth and everything's perfect and you have your makeup on perfectly. And there's still that emotional recovery that needs to happen. So any deviation along the way, whether it be that your baby got whisked away or you had to have a cesarean, the one thing that I think is lacking in healthcare is mental health support.
I love that. It is so true.
I don't know how it would get paid for. That's not my circus, not my monkeys. But I really believe that I was probably 45 years old before someone said, I really think you should talk to somebody.
Wow.
Never did the NICU, never in the 8 months that I was in the NICU with my daughter, did someone say, do you want to talk to somebody about this? And I was a young mom. I was 20 years old.
Wow.
You know, I had no skills. As we were talking, my brain wasn't formed yet. I was in crisis mode. Trying to figure out how I was going to pick up my life and move forward in the most catastrophic situation that could possibly be by myself. And not one person ever said, are you okay?
Wow.
Do you want to talk to somebody? And it's okay to talk to somebody.
Right.
Not. And so...
it's okay to not be okay with everything.
It's okay to not be okay. And it's okay that this is not okay.
Right.
It's okay. It's all going to be okay. In a different way,
yes,
but it's all going to be okay. And I wish I could make that so. Again, I wish I had a magic wand that could go into all of those spaces and help people emotionally cope with the whole process. Not just with having a baby, but just in life in general.
Right.
I feel like that's missing in society.
Yeah, it's a very fair point. I mean, it could help a lot in a lot of different ways.
I think sometimes just verbalizing it is humongous.
Yes. Wow. I mean, my mind is just racing with all of the situations where that could just help start, the process of healing, help acknowledge that there is going to be some healing that needs to happen. And again, that's okay.
Yeah, it would have made a whole lot of sense. I remember when my daughter must have been a year old, and there was a commercial that Children's Tylenol put out that said Janie had her first cold.
Yeah.
And I literally visualized myself slinging the television. And I'm not that kind of a person, but I remember thinking, I'm not okay. But I didn't know what to do with that.
Right.
Because number one, that was 30 years ago, plus. And things have changed a little bit. But more importantly, I just wasn't prepared for that.
Yeah.
The depths of grief and emotions.
Right.
To not have a clue of what to do with it.
Well, I also think about, and I may be wrong, but to some extent your body has to process physically because you can only store up so much energy and then it has to come out. But if you're running around back and forth to doctor's appointments, taking care of a sick child, taking care of yourself, getting up and going to work, you're burning energy just trying to stay going, but it's not healing.
Well, it's survival mode.
Right.
And there's only so long that people can live in that survival mode. And, when I think about like individuals who've been through wars, there's always that haunted look to their eyes, which is, I think, where they live inside of themselves. I think that a lot of parents of children who have gone through very difficult things, or even themselves, have very similar PTSD is probably what it's called.
Right. What are you going to get your doctorate in?
In theology.
Okay.
Because after spending probably a decade trying to process, everything.
Yes.
I finished my master's in December, and became, as I mentioned, an ordained grief and trauma chaplain. And so I really want to, I've yet to figure out what I want to do, but what I know is that there's got to be a teaching and healing component to what I want to accomplish. So we shall see.
Yeah, I think that the depth of experience and emotion and trauma that you will bring in understanding to those that you work with will be amazing. That will be a gift to them.
I appreciate that. And I it's so funny that I spent a lot of time and a lot of money to earn this designation as a chaplain, and the only thing I really feel like I learned is to shut my mouth. Because people don't want to hear that your cancer is different than their cancer, or better or worse. the need for someone to sit in peace and grace and silence is the biggest gift.
Yes.
And if I do that, then job well done.
Yeah. When, 2008, when the world was falling apart, I had an appendix, blockage, which turned into a rupture. And because I wasn't on the floor rolling around, crying in pain, my doctor did not catch it. And so...
Were you septic?
Yes. Oh. And so, and I was to the point where, I was like, it's okay if I die. And mind you, I have 3 very small children. But I was like, I couldn't fight the problem inside of me, and it was wearing me down, and to the point where I was like, okay, I'm ready to give up. If this is God's will, this is what will happen. Anyway, my husband called my doctor and was like, I'm taking her to the emergency room, and you better figure it out. And I spent 12 days in the hospital. My parents were away and had no idea, what was really happening, because again, I was getting up and going to work every morning, but couldn't function by noon and would go home and get in bed. My mother-in-law sat in quiet every night with me all throughout the night. And she would just say, I'm here. And she would go back to doing what she was doing. But, for nearly 12 nights, she sat with me every night. And I can't tell you what a gift that was to me and how special this woman is. I didn't know I needed that. I don't know that she knew I needed that, but she just showed up and she was there with me. And it was, again, just one of the biggest gifts I've ever been given.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
It reminds me, before my daughter was born, I was in preterm labor, and there was a nurse at KU Medical Center who came and did something very similar. And I remember in my subconscious saying, don't leave me.
Yes.
Don't leave me.
Yeah.
I don't know if she, part of me thinks, was she bored? I don't think she was
just
bored.
Knew.
I think she just knew that things were not good, and that I needed her.
Those are experienced nurses.
Yes. And now that I'm a grown-up and I know all that nurses do, she was not bored.
Right.
She was absolutely not bored. She knew that I could not be alone.
Yeah. It's a real gift. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about some of the spiritual aspects of what you have been through. What are some of the graces or gifts that you've received from this experience? How do you think about spirituality with all of this?
I was raised, I was born into godly parents, 2 godly parents. We went to church every single Sunday of my entire life, but I don't think I ever had a personal spiritual relationship. It's just you go to church. Right. That's what you do. You go to vacation Bible school. You know all the songs.
Right.
So funny because
you participate.
Oh, yes, I participated. I whipped out Zacchaeus was a wee little man a couple of years ago, and my kids were like, what is wrong with you? I'm like, but that's a song I know.
Yes.
It's just part of my childhood. And as my daughter became sicker and sicker and sicker, and we've experienced a lot of things that families should not have to experience. My daughter suffered, and there's a different level of life that you go through when you watch someone suffer, someone that you love, who's part of you, and that does not. In my experience, I did not grow closer to God. Mm-hmm. I found it very hard to believe because she was a child.
Right.
And, I have thousands of examples of how that destroys who you are.
Yes.
It destroys your humanity. It destroys your sense of purpose. And it's very hard. And so it was actually... she was on hospice for 30 days, and we, as a family, my mother, my father, my husband, and I sat vigil next to her bed until she passed away. And then you're done. Just like I felt so isolated and so alone that I was just done. And I spent several years being done. Mm-hmm. And then you meet people who into your life who help you kind of see that you weren't by yourself the whole time. I remember I was driving in my car into San Antonio, and I pulled over to the side of the road and literally had a nervous breakdown. Like, at some point you have to explode. It has to get out.
The zipper unzips
in there, yes, and I beat on my steering wheel until it broke off my car.
Wow.
Like, hold it up, and music started playing in my car.
Wow.
Not like popular pop music, but very comforting music. And I remember saying, I hate you, but you've never left. And that's that raw depth of feeling.
Yeah. The honesty.
Yeah. And it took me years to recover from that, just because I think you really, it's like a tipping point. If you've ever read the professional book, The Tipping Point, there has to be that one. They say that in relationships also, like if you're heading toward divorce and you hit that point, and there's a tipping point and you cannot go back. Like you do not go, things don't get better because you've reached that point. And so then I think I started developing another relationship, one of acceptance and gratitude that I must have been chosen for this. Like the things that I had to do were so hard that I thought maybe I was chosen for this. Maybe I was the only person who could have done this.
Right.
And so then I started very slowly, very, very slowly building to the point where I was ready again to have some sort of faith relationship. And still it's a little bit, I feel very vulnerable. I don't think I've ever felt that way before, because I'm not in control. I am not in control. Now I am a vehicle to help support. That's probably what made me really good at my job, because I am a vehicle of support for those who yesterday everything was pretty okay, and today things are not okay at all. And that speaks to my soul. I know how that feels. I remember I was at my office and my daughter had her zillionth surgery and everything was supposed to be okay then. And the doctor called me up and said, I just was so disappointed to get to this point, but now she's going to need a kidney transplant. And I remember thinking, if you would have said the Earth's going to explode in 20 minutes, I would have been less shocked, and so it's like that grief cycle starts all over again. It was like, so
it's trauma after trauma,
trauma after trauma after trauma after trauma, and so what I've learned is to be vulnerable and to have grace for everyone. And everybody isn't like you and you don't like everyone. But what I've also learned is that you have no idea. Those people that I worked with years ago who invited me to lunch and probably think I'm just sort of not very nice, but they have no idea.
Right.
No idea. And so that's what now that's what I do for other people. I have no idea. And so it allows me to enter into any room, any situation with a humility and a grace and a sense of acceptance and
appreciation for what they're going for.
Yes. Yeah. Every day. Every day. I'm not perfect.
Right.
But I hope people are doing that for me in return, because we just don't know.
Boy, our world needs more of that. But we're also quick to judge, to think our opinion is right, and it's situations like these that are real, because all of that is very superficial. We're not in those situations. We're just casting judgment at will, texting it out on X or whatever, but our opinion really doesn't matter, and it doesn't impact the change. You're making personal connections with people is real, and it impacts people, and it makes change for better or worse. Yes.
Right? People want to be seen. People want to be heard. People want to know that they matter. I think we can feel like we don't even matter.
Right.
Yeah. So
I worked downtown, and there's a fairly strong homeless population downtown. This was maybe 20 years ago, but still, there was a woman who lived in a, flower box, if you will, around a building, and there was a guy who lived right near the bus station. And on occasion, I would, go to Bill Miller and I would grab an extra lunch and I would take it over to one of them. And the woman you couldn't have a conversation with. She was just mentally not able to function that way. But the man would sometimes have a dog, and on occasion I would say, how's it going? What's going on? And he told me that. He said, the worst part is not being seen. Mm-hmm. Like, people walk by and just don't acknowledge you, and it hurts your humanity as a person when that happens. And so that was a huge lesson that he taught me. Not that I live it every day, but it's just a reminder that we're all human. We all want to be seen and heard, and our lives are not perfect, and our stories are not perfect, and sometimes we're really struggling, and sometimes we're on top, but that's life. And having that grace to meet people where they are in that moment,
it's hard.
Is life.
It's so hard, though, because
is what life should be.
Yes. We're all busy, right?
Right.
So when the person in front of us is taking their sweet time, and your instinct is to beep your horn at them, and all
That's
the
me.
things.
Yes.
I speaking of our homeless neighbors, there's a gentleman here in town that comes to my house for Thanksgiving.
Wow.
His name is Bill. The first year he came over, some other friends of ours, the wife is a surgeon, her husband is in biotech, very sophisticated people. So my kids went to get Bill. Bill's homeless.
Yes.
He dressed up beautifully, though.
Yeah.
It was really impressive to me. I'm like, got off the juice and all dressed up. And we went through all of Thanksgiving meal and watching football games. And then somehow one of my boys said, we want to take Bill home. What would you consider Bill's home?
Right.
And the wife overheard and said, well, what do you mean? Doesn't he live in Bernie? I said, no, he's one of our homeless neighbors. Mm-hmm. She said, I'm stunned.
Wow.
Just stunned. And so they walk among us, and
yes.
And if we embrace them, they can become part of our inner circle.
Yep.
It just depends on how far
you're willing.
Yeah.
No.
It's just kind of interesting.
It's a great point. It's a great point. And, challenging yourself to see people is a wonderful, wonderful, I don't know how to explain it. I mean, if you can wake up and say, you know what, today I'm going to see everybody and I'm going to acknowledge them, whether it's the cashier at HEB or the stock boy, as you're going down the aisle. I mean, hello, that most of them have earbuds in these days. But I mean, it's just if there's an opportunity all day long to see people, and if you can challenge yourself to do that, it opens up a little something inside of you.
I think I'm not repeating a story that floats around because this is real. Although I've heard other people say the same thing, that there are really lonely students, and in yearbooks it's written, "You're the only person who was nice to me."
Yes.
Somebody said that about my daughter. You're the only one who was nice to me.
Wow.
And so we live her legacy by being good to the Bills of the world.
Yep.
And it's amazing. It becomes something that you are inspired to do. Mm-hmm. Like, it doesn't take much to be kind.
Right.
It takes so much energy to be ugly and unkind.
Yes.
It takes no energy whatsoever. So
you have to be wrapped up in yourself to be ugly and unkind.
I think so.
And so many of us are. I mean, that's what the world teaches you. I have this ongoing relationship with God where he's constantly teaching me things. Like, I just get these, they're not messages, I just get these points that come across, like, I need to work on this, I need to work on that. And recently it's been the Lord's Prayer. Like, how do you make heaven on earth? Which is what the prayer says. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. That's our challenge, is to make heaven on earth. And how do we do that? And it goes back to seeing people, giving grace, getting out of my way, my head. I just think the world becomes a much better place if we're all thinking like that.
It's funny. Our sermon in church yesterday was really talking about building the house of so again, back to it's a country song. It's so true. Like all good life lessons are just a country song. But really talking about how you can absolutely take nothing with you except the works that you do. You know, I can fall down a million times, but I'm trying to do a million good things too. You know, we don't have to be perfect.
Right.
To do our very best to influence and to provide a better lived experience for those in our circle. But, you know, at the same time, I'm a grudge holder. I have a neighbor who did something really awful and mean to me like a decade ago, and I still can't get over it.
Forgiveness is really hard.
It's very hard. It's so hard. It's so hard. But
after you get your doctorate, we're going to come back and talk about faith.
Like, why can't I get rid of this?
Tell me about how you and your husband survived your marriage and parented and raised 3 other children during this process.
I don't know. You know, second marriages, blended families are typically like impossible. Many families just cannot do it. You know, there's outside influences. When we got married, I said very prophetic words to my husband. I said, our problems will have nothing to do with you and I.
Yes.
Nothing. It will be all of the outside influences that will make it impossible for us. And we were there.
Yeah.
We were there. I really feel that faith was the only thing at times that was holding us together, just because it was just so hard. And my husband and I have been married for so long, leaning in on 30 years. We can't, like, we're not different people anymore.
Right.
We're kind of like the same person.
Yes.
You know, we operate as one unit. And I think we've always done everything in our power to operate as one unit. You know, it took us a while, but we would show up together. We were on the same team. We were speaking the same language. And then at the same time, you know, fast forward 20 years and you're saying the same words.
Right.
You're
finishing each other's sentences.
Exactly. And it really is. And that's why I feel like, you know, this young woman from Kansas meets this young man from California, and we had both had some similar lived experiences, and we met, and God wanted us to live life together. That's the only thing that makes sense to me, that he saw what we didn't, which was that he wanted us to live life together.
How was it for the boys growing up? Let me position this a little bit differently. When you have a sick child, that can take a lot of time and attention and focus, and you get spent taking care of the crisis. How do you have time and energy and relax enough, be vulnerable enough? I mean, how do you continue to raise other children who need you but may not be able to get you all the time when they need you too? I mean, from a mother, we're constantly looking at how are we spending our time? Where did I fail? How could I do better? I mean, you're always judging yourself as well. How did you manage to raise 3 boys as well?
Her illness became part of our life. And so, like, at the time when my daughter went on to dialysis, my kids were really young, like 3 and 8.
Wow.
And they could run the dialysis machine.
Wow.
And they would help her set it up, and they will, like, so it almost just became part of
the fabric of
fabric of our family. And so, like, how crazy is that, right? And I think it affected my youngest the most. She could have stopped dialysis before she did, but she said she didn't want them to forget her. Aww. She wanted them to remember her, so she tried to hang on as long as possible so they would be old enough to remember her. Her illness literally just became another person in our family. Yeah. And it was just like we would go to the mountains and load up all of her dialysis stuff in the back of the truck, and it would just go along with us. And so her illness became another person in our family, if that makes sense. But my children, there are no children more loved than my kids. And we tell them 50 times a day how much we love them, how much they're valued, how you're smart and capable and all the things. And so...
to say those things to them and not let the time pass where you don't.
Mm-hmm. My husband and my youngest got into a tiff, the 18-year-old.
Oh, yes.
Yes. So it was so funny over the weekend. I had to lower the boom. I had to be the mediator. Yes. And everybody sat down at the dining room table, and I said, we don't do this. In our home, we don't do this, because if Jesus comes knocking, we're out of here.
Yep.
We're not the kinds of families. We are not the type of family that holds grudges. Mm-hmm. We're not the type of family that doesn't forgive. Mm-hmm. Forget about the neighbor. That's become more funny than anything. We are the family who is defying logic.
Right.
Of being a stable...
you can be a light, yeah.
Right. The world does not infiltrate. Like we are, if there's one thing that I know, is that there is love in our home, and that doesn't change. Mm-hmm. So y'all need to get over whatever's happened in here, because we don't do that.
Right. Put your prides aside.
Yeah. Whatever happened, it doesn't matter.
Right.
This is all that matters.
That's right.
I was really successful.
Good for you.
My husband said, "What did you say? You were really good at that." And I said, "I don't know. I opened my mouth and, just kind of comes out."
No, it's those small reminders of what really matters that can help reset you mentally and changes everything for the positive.
Humility?
Yes. Oh, yeah. A couple things. I had a friend pass away in November from cancer. She had one of those turbo cancers that everybody thought she had beat it. And, 2 weeks later, she has 4 days left to live. And her last words to her husband were sacrifice, sacrifice, sacrifice. And I believe it's the mother in her telling her husband, you have to sacrifice for your family. Mm-hmm. Because that's what our role is. We put ourselves aside to do for others so that everybody's safe, everybody's in that unit of love. We don't have time for pride, not that it doesn't show up every single day in lots of ways, but we have to make sure our family units are safe, that they are well loved, that they're cared for, that they're connected, all of those things we've talked about. And I do believe that is more a woman's role than a man's role. Men are providers, protectors, they're circling the family in a different way, and it takes both of us to make them work. But sacrifice is something we all live with, but you lived with it in a different way. Your whole family did, but it sounds like from what you've said, you end up embracing it and making it's just a part of who you are and what you do. And it's not, woe is me, this is our life and this is how we deal with it. But sacrifice, suffering, I guess, is what can be really, really hard to watch and endure when you can't do anything about it. And you suffer as well. But I don't know, just sacrifice and suffering are kind of woven together for me. It's hard to have one without the other. What are your thoughts on?
I think we're all suffering and sacrificing in different ways. Yep. When I think about...
different levels, too.
Right. And I think about things like education. Like, people whose desire is for their children to have the highest level of education. And they're going to suffer and sacrifice and not going on vacations. My closest, most precious friend is one of 8. All of her siblings have PhD, a doctorate, MD, JD. They're all of them. 8. Because their parents sacrificed and probably suffered some along the way. 8 children, all with the highest level of education that they can possibly achieve. And I think that that's really an excellence that they implemented. And I think that in my family, we had an excellence of love.
Yes.
We had an excellence. So we exemplified suffering. Like, we were really good at it. We were so good at it that it became part of the fabric of our family, where we embraced it. We're just going to suffer through this. And almost hold hands a little more tightly, embrace every moment, where when you feel so deeply.
Right.
I almost feel like that's a gift.
Right. Kind of transcends a level.
Yes. So like I met this guy probably 30 years ago. He was speaking at a conference and he said, nothing bad's really happened to me in my life. And I remember sitting back and saying, I'm sorry. Because I don't think we are living a life that's similar. I think that even though I suffer, sacrifice, the depths of emotion and experiences, I really wouldn't trade that.
Right.
Because I feel like I got a better life.
Right. Right.
Isn't that an odd thing to say?
No.
Like, I feel like I got a better ride through this experience.
Your emotions were deeper because of those things. I mean, you had to dig in harder, but you loved harder as well.
Yes. When you suffer and you sacrifice, you're really, can't stand the phrase, but like you're leaning in, you're all in, you are like your heels are dug in and you're going to fight to the death.
Yep.
It's almost like be someone who goes to war.
Right.
You put your armor on.
Absolutely. No, war is in all different ways.
Yeah. You can go to war against cancer.
Yeah.
You can go to war against what you believe in.
Right.
Your beliefs and your the things that are important to you. You can go to war in your families. Like you're not going to let the outside into your home and attack your home.
Yes. Love that. How did your life change after Jennifer passed away?
So, in many ways, I got to live.
Right.
So, I had her when I was 20. She died when I was 44. So, like, my life began at 44. I felt like I was in my 20s because professionally I got to do things because I wanted to,
right?
Not because it had the best health insurance, and I got to
thought of that.
Experience things that that brought me joy instead of And I really feel like it was just this giant, like I was pulling a wagon of boulders behind me, and that moment that I could kind of like let it go. I just felt like I was free. I really felt like it was a freedom. I really needed to process. It took a solid 5 years and I'm not exaggerating, to really, really process. But my husband and I started traveling together, and my boys, we could, even though they were always equally as important, we could really do things with them without that constant threat of the Grim Reaper coming that night, because it got bad, really, really bad. And so the last 10 years have been magical but at the same time heavy. So it's like the what is it, the scales of justice. I feel like sometimes, you can really get caught in the grief cycle part of it, and then the other part of you feels like, oh, I'm just so free. Really enlightened.
I'm so glad that you said that, because I think sometimes we might be ashamed to say that or fearful that we feel that way, but life is meant to be lived, and it's also a way to honor Jennifer's memory, and that your family is still together and loves each other, and there are things you can do and celebrate and live differently afterwards, because you're not constrained by the illness or the threats of what's going to happen.
It's definitely something that I had to process and embrace. It's okay to smile and be happy and feel joy and laugh, and it's okay. It's okay. It's more than okay. It's again, we talk about her every day. She's part of every other conversation at my house, because all of our family experiences were not like we didn't raise her in a room
bubble,
and then try to do normal things. It was all just one big chaotic mess together of happiness, joy, life. We have so many lived experiences.
I love it. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
having experienced what you did, knowing what you know now, 24 years of living with disease, how does the policy of healthcare, where does it need to go? I mean, how does it benefit? How does it hurt? I mean, you know, as you're going through the experience, I'm sure there were times where you were like, damn it, if only this, you know, policy were different. I mean, what do you see that needs to happen from your experience of going through this?
So going back in our conversation, I have very passionate thoughts about how mental health support needs to be part of healthcare. Mm-hmm. Like how it's separated is atrocious to me, that it's not integrated as part of healthcare.
Right.
Because if you're going to experience something physically, you're going to experience it mentally as well. And again, if I had a magic wand, I would assign a counselor, a psychologist, not a social worker, but I have great respect for social workers, a licensed professional counselor to every patient in every clinic on the face of the universe. Like that to me, again, it's not going to happen, so I can say this very loftily. I really think that should be as important as having a nurse or a phlebotomist or whatever other. I really feel like it should be integrated. Mm-hmm. Mental health care should be integrated into physical health care. End of story. She was sick for so long, and we've been to so many places. We have experienced the worst of the medical errors, the worst of humanity, mm-hmm. the worst of the stupidity. I mean, I could go on and on, and it's not appropriate, but like, seriously, I wish everybody cared as deeply about their jobs. Just because you serve in healthcare doesn't mean you love your job.
Right.
And it shows.
Right.
It really, so there's the nurse who sits, there's the mother-in-law and the nurse who will sit there while you're dying and not leave you. And then there's the one who gives you the wrong medicine. And how, I'm not sure. So like, but really, I think the dividing line is how deeply do you really care?
Right.
And so we've been through it all.
Yeah.
Like absolutely. But if I could change healthcare, so this is a real story. My daughter was hospitalized in a year's time about 40 times.
Oh my gosh.
So there's only 52 weeks in a year. So the way that you bill is that, and I'm not a subject matter expert, but you have to be out of the hospital for a long enough period of time before you can bill again. It's very complicated and out of my pay grade here, but I got a charge off letter from a collection agency of over $100,000. But we had 3 insurances, Blue Cross Blue Shield, TRICARE. I mean, we had it all. But the hospital system could not figure out how to bill it. So they just washed their hands of it and sent it to a collection agency. And at that time, I was the executive director of a small nonprofit organization, and I happened to know the administrator of that hospital. And I called him up and I said, you have 10 minutes to fix this. And you better be so grateful this happened to me. Mm-hmm. Because if this would have happened to another family, that father would have wanted to drive his car off a bridge.
Yep.
How dare you? I was like spitting, angry, frustrated, yelling, screaming, like, how dare they? Because as if we weren't dealing with enough.
Right. Add the financial burden on top of it all.
How dare you do this to us? Just
kick their problem to someone else and let them figure it out.
And so I got on the phone with their CFO, who laughed at me. He's like, I'm sorry I made you have a bad day.
Oh my gosh.
I'm like, you walk among us.
Maybe you're not in the right position.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think he was embarrassed, and that was his language of trying to do. I don't know. I'm not making excuses, but like, that's another thing,
I hadn't even considered the whole financial aspect of this.
I remember my stepson was in every sport, and he was really talented, so great. And he went from baseball to basketball to soccer to, on and on and on. And at the end of every single season, there was the team party. Mm-hmm. And my husband and I could very rarely afford to be at the team party because we made perfectly fine incomes, but having to pay the co-insurances and the co-pays and the stress that put on our family. And it was not his fault. And we never missed, ever. But if you would have been watching closely, we probably had one children's chicken nugget meal that we shared.
Right.
Just so we could show up and be present.
Yep.
Like, so if you're really watching people,
yep.
you know, you see. You
can tell the story if you pay attention.
If you pay attention, so the financial aspect is just unbelievable. How we did not go bankrupt as a couple and have been able to reach this season of our lives where my husband's retired and, you know, I work because it brings me joy. It's inconceivable. Like that in itself could have brought us to a marriage end very simply.
Absolutely.
Because you just can't do it anymore.
Right.
I never remember getting to a point where we couldn't do it anymore. There was one time, there was someone who invited herself to my daughter's funeral, and my husband was having a really hard time saying no. I was like, number one, who does that? Number two, and I remember him saying, if you don't lighten up over this, I'm out of here. I remember thinking, over this? We've come through all of this, and this is what we come down to. I know it was the stress, but
yes,
but the financial is a destroyer.
So much more that we could unpack.
I mean, a lifetime of conversation.
Absolutely. I'm so appreciative that you would be open and honest with me, with our audience, and really share your journey and your, you know, process of going through this.
Of course.
It's a very wonderful gift that you can give to others, to let them know they're not alone and life does go on.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
Life does go on, and you do laugh, and you do joke, and our fondest memory of our daughter is when she was in junior high, her and her best friend Courtney, and they would talk like they would get together and they would talk like those 1980s Valley girls. Hey Courtney, hey Jennifer, and we mimic them nonstop around the house. We're like, hey John, hey Staci, you know, pulling that into your vernacular, your lived, like that's what makes it so good. Yeah, because it wasn't all bad.
Right.
You know, it really wasn't all bad, and really being able to rejoice the joys and live in the difficulties. But at the end of the day, it made us wiser, stronger, kinder, more faithful, more intimately aware of each other's needs. I will take that life bearing my daughter over the man who said he'd never had anything bad happen.
Yeah.
I'll take my experiences because that's a life worth living.
Right. Right. So I'm going to ask you, and you may have just answered it, but with the title of this podcast show being This is Wealth, living life richly, I think you just described that component. How do you define wealth now?
So I spent so much time thinking about this. Thank you for asking. And I really believe that I consider wealth the depth of emotions. Wealth is feeling that you've reached that point. I drive through the country to my office every day, and I leave my neighborhood, and there is this vast and beautiful world that I get to embrace. And the rolling green hills and cattle, and there's a sheep farm, and all I want to do is live in it, live in that place, and help others. That to me is wealth. It's the flexibility of knowing that it's my choice now, how I want to be able to do that. And if I want to serve, and I want to, no matter what I want to do, now it's my turn. Now, to me, that's wealth. It's being able to truly embrace all aspects of my life, surrounded by my family, and really live the most intentional, beautiful life. To me, that's wealth.
That's beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
I've really enjoyed our time. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Well, there are so many great conversations that come from discovering the true wealth in your life. And I feel that when you see wealth for more than money, you will have true clarity in what matters to you. And that clarity will help you in every decision you make. Thank you for spending time with us. I look forward to the next time you'll join us. And remember, wealth is a lot more than money.